Welcome to Keep Smiling, the e-commerce customer experience podcast. Selling products online is challenging and can lead to poor experiences. We explore how entrepreneurs and organizations create better experiences for the people they serve. Amazon, Shopify, artificial intelligence. We'll discuss what matters today and what you can do to build a better e-commerce business. Hello, listeners, and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ty Walters, and with me again today is my co-host, Michael Melgar. Today's episode is a follow-up about the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's affecting e-commerce and especially customer service. Today's date is March 27th, and we're going to be covering some of the things that are happening today in the context of our previous episode, which was from the 17th of March. So this is 10 days later. We'll have some new updates to talk about. If you're hearing this one for the first time, go back and catch up. You can find that at sellersmile.com/024. And this will be the next episode in that sequence.
Everything related to the COVID-19 pandemic is an ever-changing story. If you don't keep up with the news for one day, you might already be out of date a little bit on certain things going on. Things are changing rapidly, so this is information that we've provided for you to the best of our knowledge, to the best of our ability at this current time on Friday, March 27th, we're recording. So as always, make sure to do your own research when you listen to some of these updates, and if you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us and talk to us about them.
Yeah, so in the first part, Michael and I will talk a little bit about what we're seeing in terms of our clients in customer service and also in e-commerce in general. And we're going to then transition into covering some of the various updates from the e-commerce platforms that we deal with on a daily basis, including Amazon, eBay, and Walmart. So stay tuned for those.
Some of the things that we've heard about just right off the bat over the last 10 days, we've heard about Amazon hiring over 100,000 workers. They're ramping up their hiring process for fulfillment and trying to fulfill as many orders as possible. So these are things that are impacting your orders, Amazon's own orders. And we see Amazon using this as a potential way for being able to continue operations running as much as possible. We've even seen how this is tied to how that might affect the inbound shipments limitation that we talked about on our last episode. We have a quick update on that coming up in a few moments, but we see this being directly related to that, and Amazon even included this announcement about hiring in the original announcement about this.
Right, and what we're seeing, Michael, compared to previous 10 days ago, in my opinion, is that we're seeing more official shutdowns of local businesses. We're hearing non-essential businesses and things that are physical location only, whereas e-commerce seems to be less affected, at least right now. There's still a lot of activity going on despite these lockdowns and enforced quarantines that we're seeing. But one thing that's just particularly interesting about this situation is how global and how far-reaching and similar these consequences are. The SellerSmile team has team members across the world, and we all have almost the same story in terms of the mandates that our governments are having for our communities to stay inside and limiting the activities that we can participate in, as well as the maximum number of people that can be present during those activities.
And this, in turn, means a lot of online shopping.
Although a lot of us are stuck at home, we still have the capability, the technology, the access to do our shopping online, receive our products from the safety of our home without having to go and stand in the longer lines in the shopping centers that may or may not be in stock of the items that you're looking for. Michael, let's discuss what we've been seeing happening with the customer service of our clients. So the various e-commerce sellers we work with, mostly on Amazon, many having a blended fulfilled by merchant strategy. But let's talk about how we've seen their businesses be affected, because just in the last 10 days, I think most of what we saw starting to happen has continued to happen. And we've seen more of the same question occurring from the sellers and businesses that we work with. And I think the most pointed question that has come out of the situation recently has been focus on fulfilled by merchant or FBM, as opposed to FBA, or keeping your inventory and fulfillment within Amazon. So maybe let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we would advise as a customer service company and agency to a seller in order to do their customer service in the best way, and what should they expect?
Absolutely. So we have seen some of our sellers have to make a very quick last minute shift into fulfillment by merchant listings So their option to using FBA has been limited due to the update we were referring to on our last episode that we mentioned briefly earlier in the episode already. But since Amazon was prioritizing certain product types in their fulfillment centers, a lot of sellers are trying to pivot really quickly to moving into fulfillment by merchant options. And in some cases, this might be an area that you haven't previously explored before. And so what you might start to see from a customer service perspective are questions that Amazon FBA typically handles for you. So these are things that might be more related to order processing, order shipment. Customers might be inquiring about, hey, what's the status of my order? Hey, I need to cancel my order. How do I initiate my return? Things like that. These are things that you might typically have Amazon be able to handle for you. But as you inherit this responsibility, it becomes that much more important that you think about the current process that you have behind this and how that might influence perhaps some of the more common responses that you're using. In one example, something that you might have not considered before is, let's say a customer isn't happy with the length of time that an order might take to reach them, and they request a cancellation, right? So some of the things you might think about are, do I have the ability to cancel at this stage in their order? And if so, what are the steps needed for me to do so? So think about this, especially if you yourself, or if you have a VA, or if you have a team members handling this for you. If you're making a quick last minute shift to FBM, you might not realize that you might have to actually cancel that order in several places, right? Do you have an external shipping software that you're using to ship out these orders? Do you physically talk to a fulfillment center? These are things that you're going to have to set up some sort of course of communication to make sure that if a customer needs to cancel their order or needs to modify their address or anything like that, that you have the way to accommodate that, or at the very least, to have a way to respond to that. So these are things to start to think about at this time as you, again, begin to move into more fulfillment by merchant listings, if that's something that you're doing during this pandemic.
It's almost as if Amazon customer service is in the shadows. It's this force that benefits all third-party FBA sellers, with the majority of customer service situations, inquiries, and questions. When you go FBM, when you go outside of that FBA environment, like Michael said, you're inheriting these responsibilities. And we've seen questions from sellers that they're not quite sure how to handle these situations. And not only that, but it takes a lot of time and effort to investigate and establish those standard procedures for the first time.
Your customers might actually think that their order is still going to arrive in Prime's 2-day shipping, right? So even though the pandemic is going on, some customers might just be unaware of it. I mean, they might be in a location that they're just not being as affected by this. So they might believe, or they might have certain expectations about shipment time or what options are available to them. So keep in mind that these are options that might be previously given to them or that they might already be used to. So if at all possible, if you have the ability to, try to emulate some of Amazon's own processes with regards to returns, with regards to cancellations. Try to think about some of those things that your customers might already be used to that you might need to emulate, or at least try to have some sort of response for if they were to reach out to you and you're using a fulfillment by merchant listing.
Something notable that occurred to me recently was one of our clients, although they had a warehouse outside of Amazon, their warehouse had to shut down, cease operations because of the local government's mandates. I expected maybe third-party warehouses have an advantage, and maybe they still do, but in some cases those warehouses had to cease operation, where that's contrary to Amazon's operations, right? We're seeing them ramp up the activity in those warehouses, adding workers, increasing their pay. So it's something interesting if you're doing the FBA versus FBM type of comparison.
If Amazon, who has the largest fulfillment network available in the world, is having trouble keeping up and needs to hire for it, then we imagine that some of these smaller fulfillment centers might encounter some similar issues and might be limited in a similar way. So these are things that might occur to you. Generally speaking, just something that I try to think about as a business owner, if you find yourself in a situation like this, is try not to make it all perfect. Everything is changing on a day-to-day basis, so it might require you to take quick action and to make a change and change your decisions very quickly from one day to another. So something to keep in mind is that you shouldn't strive for perfection in these times. Try to be responsive. Try to take quick action, And really at the end of the day, listen to what your customers are saying and try not to get overwhelmed with perhaps like if you'll have an uptick in volume, try not to get overwhelmed with just the volume. Try to think about what's actually happening. What are some processes I can actually put in place to maybe respond to a certain, like a majority of these customer service questions. Finally, kind of something that I wanted to mention about this is, it's a stressful time for everyone. So it's a stressful time for you. It's a stressful time for your customers. Take a moment and remind your customers that there's a human on the other side. Something that we've started to do at SellerSmile is we're trying to make at least some mention in our message to say, please stay safe. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback about that sort of messaging, but something you might want to consider is perhaps being even more empathetic than usual, because your customer might be really stressed or might be in a tough situation. And so their reason for wanting their product very quickly or something related to that might be related to something that they feel is in their own immediate danger, or something that they were hoping would help through this stressful time. So keep that in mind. If you are getting customers who are really upset, they might not necessarily be upset with you. They might be, just kind of stressed out about everything in general. Try to be understanding, try to be flexible.
Everyone's going through this together. It's a shared hardship, and that can be a source of bonding. What we've been seeing is that generally customers are understanding of the delays, of the challenges that they might be facing regarding their order and your shipment of it. So understand that, especially if you're genuine in reaching out to them and trying to explain the situation. We mentioned on a previous episode, our team has developed unique email templates for this situation. They're all COVID-19 related examples of explaining why an order might be delayed, why the replacement of that order might be delayed or impossible at the time. So consider doing that for your own team. We've turned to those templates time and time again.
Definitely. You don't be afraid to make mention of this impacting your fulfillment times. And as Ty mentioned, we generally have seen customers be very understanding of that. So don't be afraid to mention it. Be conscientious of that, that your customers are experiencing this as well.
We're going to cover just briefly some of the notable updates from Amazon, Walmart, and eBay. Find the links in the show notes for each one of these sources and stay up to date. Things are changing so fast. There's an enormous amount of content out there that's relevant to e-commerce and customer service, so we're certainly picking the highlights here.
So much has been changing that Amazon has even essentially stickied one of their headlines that includes a summary of all of their recent announcements. We saw one as recently as of today. They've been doing that for the last couple of days. So again, this is just the volume of updates that are coming on, especially like on Amazon.
And two notable updates from that news feed that you'll find, of course, if you go to the link in the show notes. The first one is fulfilling your own orders on Amazon, important reminders. Amazon was giving some best practices and some guidelines if you as a seller suddenly need to learn how to manage your own orders a little bit better, where you can find certain settings that might create a better user experience, a better customer experience, and fulfilling your own orders in my opinion, has been less of the preferred strategy, but this entire COVID-19 pandemic has changed that. And I think sellers are looking for a little bit more independence and certainly a contingency plan if interruptions like this were to happen in their supply chain.
One quick win related to this update is one of the items they mentioned, which is set your default return instructions. So if you haven't done that before or you haven't revisited it in a while, it's worth taking the time to take a look, because that's the information that customers are provided whenever they initiate a return. So make sure that if you are doing fulfillment by merchant listings, that information is up to date, that you have an up-to-date return address, and that will help facilitate a lot of your return process for you.
And I was really glad to see this next announcement. On March 20th, Amazon said that specifically, they will be taking into account any COVID-related disruption as it relates to late shipping or needing to cancel orders. And we know many sellers were concerned that they see these rates rising. Those rates and being above those thresholds could be grounds for maybe listing or even selling privileges being suspended. So Amazon is, of course, I think, doing the right thing here and saying, listen, we understand this is a unique time. These thresholds were not built for this situation. Don't worry about it. We're going to kind of get through this together, giving sellers a little bit of margin to breathe safely.
One of the most notable updates that we've just heard about in the last couple of days is that Amazon is starting to be a bit more flexible what products are being sent in, but they are actually looking at that on a case-by-case basis. Actually, their exact verbiage here is, given our constrained capacity, we're doing this on an item-by-item basis. So these are things that you can continue to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks, couple of days. We imagine that Amazon will continue to have more and more updates about this as they know whether they can continue to accept products a little bit faster or whether there's going to be more delays there. So it is very important that you are keeping up with these news, especially related to inbound shipments.
Right. This update, Michael, is just from today. It's noted here, March 27th, 2020. And what stood out about this to me was the new tool to check eligibility. Take a look at that tool and it'll help you figure out which products you could create a new shipment for to restock, because I think that's what a lot of sellers are worried about. How long will this moratorium on new inbound shipments last? And when will my product line be exempt? So go check it out because that might pertain to you.
Outside of the Amazon world, there's been a lot of updates coming from eBay, coming from Walmart. One notable thing from eBay that we noticed is that they are actually providing a lot of resources to their sellers, things that they, one of the announcements were that they were being a bit more relaxed on out of stock items, like their constraint on how long you can stay out of stock. That's one of the things that they mentioned. But one thing that kind of stood out to us is eBay's own approach to the customer service. Aside from providing these help documents on their announcements page in their community, one thing that they mentioned is their update here that says, thousands of customer service agents are working to support you through COVID-19. The transition for our customer service agents to work from home is complete, and they are ready to answer your questions. Given these unprecedented times, we are all adapting how we're working to ensure we support your needs. So I just thought it was neat that this is a company as large as eBay is right there along with us. For a lot of companies who are transitioning to remote work, one of the core components of SellerSmile since the beginning was the ability to work remotely. Our entire team is distributed across the world, and pushing companies to work remotely has been unfortunate. But the upside to think about is that this is a great reminder to think about some of the ways that you can position your business to be ready to be able to work remote if you ever needed to, or if you don't already, right? So again, and this will even affect your customer service. If your team members have to report to an office, these are things that you'll have to take into account in a situation where perhaps like weather or God forbid another pandemic were to occur. These are things you need to take into account because they will affect your business. They will impact you in the future. So this is a great reminder, and eBay's post about it kind of just reminds us that if you aren't already investing in ways to create a strong remote presence for your business, for your internal team, make sure to try to take steps for that now. We might do a future episode on some of the tools that we use to be successful as a customer service team remotely.
And a final note from Walmart here in an article entitled COVID-19 Updates for Marketplace Sellers. This was updated on March 26th. This article goes through the top 4 things that you might be interested in when it comes to Walmart and their response, and how you as a seller can interact with their platform better. So they offer advice such as, we're relaxing our order defect rate policies, how to manage closures and inventory during the crisis, reminder on marketing and pricing, and ensure your contact information is up to date. So giving you that quick list to go through to make sure you're good to go and that your Walmart presence doesn't suffer during these challenging times.
Like us and many others out there, we're sure that you're seeing just the influx of news coming that are related to COVID-19. So again, there's a lot of things going on, but the important thing is that you're staying on top of the things that matter. Don't get caught up on the little things. Don't try to be a perfectionist. And above all, in every opportunity that you get to help a customer to go the extra mile, this is especially one of the times to take a step back and do so.
And at SellerSmile, we're all about happiness and people and connection. And recently, if you feel like you haven't had enough of that to make you feel healthy and loved, have a phone call with someone, get on a video chat with a family or a friend and just catch up. And you need no specific agenda, but we get that just by the nature of having a daily meeting in our workplace. And if you lost that recently, try to get it back in a different way.
And I'll shoot that an invitation out to any of our listeners. If you just want to talk and kind of rant about everything going on, that's actually been a lot of our client calls recently. Reach out to us, keepsmiling@sellersmiles.com. We'll be happy to do a Google Hangouts or a Zoom call with you and just have some coffee and talk through everything. It's a crazy time. Just to kind of wrap everything up, guys, we had a great quote here, a gentle reminder to kind of put a bow on all this. And today's quote comes from Epictetus, and he says, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them."
This is our second COVID-19 update. The situation is still developing. We'll report back as we have more information to share. And if you have questions about what we discussed today or need customer service help, email us at keepsmiling@sellersmile.com. Stay safe and keep smiling.